On today's show, the Capitals sign Nic Dowd to a 2-year extension, and is Ryan Leonard living up to expectation?
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you for making this your first listen of the day. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the Capitals versus the Penguins in the season finale, the regular season finale, and how interesting it is. And two teams that are in opposite ends of the spectrum. The Capitals are poised. They are ready to launch into the playoffs. And well, the Penguins, they're going to be setting up tea time here shortly. What can we expect between the Capitals and the Penguins? A bit later, is Ryan Leonard living up to expectation? Speaking here personally, I took a look at what he put up at Boston College, putting up 30 goals, saw what he did on the international stage, and I think at least in part of me was thinking, and maybe you're thinking this as well, is that when he joined the team, he would just get fired out of a cannon and score a bunch of goals. Hasn't really been the case. Is he living up to expectation? But just to get it going here, the big news of the day is that the Capitals signed Nic Dowd to a 2-year extension, fully completing my master plan. If you are an everydayer of the show, I said there's 3 players that the Capitals must take care of before free agency in July, and they took care of them. It was Logan Thompson, it was Chychrun, and now Nic Dowd. Those were the 3 players that I prioritized. And Charlie Lindgren was just the nice icing on top of the cake. So the Capitals doing truly great things. Chris Patrick is knocking it out of the park already, setting this team up splendidly for the future. If you don't know, maybe you should know, is that Nic Dowd is that huge player on the 4th line, but 4th line in name only, as he is often tasked with shutting down some of the biggest players in the NHL, and has done it for years for the Capitals, playing on the 4th line with a lot of different players, and he is that alpha guy. He is the guy that stirs the drink on the 4th line, a true leader on and off the ice, a player that Chris Patrick said is integral to this team's success. So I thought, and as apparently he does, that it was of utmost importance to take care of it now before making it go all the way out to the summer when he could have slipped through the Capitals' hands. So a really great thing, adding stability on this team for at least the next 2 years. It's great. And as he is heading up on being 35 years old, a 2-year contract seems about appropriate. And one of the things he talked about, I'll talk about here briefly, is that he wasn't planning on being on the Capitals this whole time. And you take a look at what Frank Saravalli and the other guys said last summer, that they thought that Nic Dowd was going to be on the move because the Capitals were going to be going through this big rebuild, this big laborious rebuild. Well, as it's turned out, it has been pieced together on the fly and has been going very well. I mean, the Capitals, last team last year to qualify for the playoffs, the first team this year to qualify for the playoffs. I think that you could say this rebuild, this retool, semantics at the end of the day, is far ahead of where anyone had planned. But let's dive into the meat and potatoes of this episode, and it is about none other than Nic Dowd. And I got to be honest, I'm very excited about this. And, to be honest, it's not too often you get excited about a 4th line player. But if you know Nic Dowd, he is more than just that. The Caps announced they signed him to that 2-year contract extension worth $3 million per season. That was the right move to make, and I'm glad they were able to come to terms as far as how much he's getting paid. And despite the fact that he is closing in on being 35 years old here, that I think he could have probably got more elsewhere. This keeps him with the Capitals through the 26-27 season, which is fantastic news for both the team and the fans. And most people, he's beloved in the community. He's that great guy out on the ice. There is a lot to love. But this is a lot like other players on this team, a breakout season for Nic Dowd. Dowd is currently in the last year of his 3-year deal that paid him 1.3 mil annually, and he's having a truly breakout season with career high 14 goals and 27 points. And just huge out there. And oftentimes he's not the guy that scores on a regular because he is tasked with doing other things as he is that shutdown present. But let's be honest, Dowd's contributions go far beyond the numbers. And it goes from praise from management, from Chris Patrick, praised him as an integral member of the team. He highlighted Dowd's reputation as a reliable two-way player who enhances the team's depth at the center position. So he's not just the center. He's not just the guy that's feeding the puck to the other guys. He is that two-way player. He is that shutdown player that the Capitals love. And it's clear that Dowd has carved out his role, especially as part of what we affectionately call Dowder's line, which focuses on handling tough defensive matchups. And, for a fourth line player, he gets in quite a bit of ice time. His average ice time is 15 minutes, 10 seconds. And Dowd leads forwards with 2 minutes, 35 seconds on the PK, which is no small feat in and of itself. So that is what has me excited. And I talked to some friends at work that are NHL fans and like, dude, what are you so excited about a fourth liner for? That's what I'm talking about. He is like a Swiss Army knife, if you will, for the Capitals. And Spencer Carberry as well didn't hold back when discussing Dowd's contribution, stating that he handles some of the toughest minutes in the league and plays a vital role in allowing stars like Ovechkin to focus on offense. That was a quote, paraphrasing there, from a presser earlier in the day. Now, but for him, it's all about those hard 200-foot shifts that help the team maintain its competitive edge. And if he played on another team, he could most likely be playing on a higher line. But the fourth line suits him well in DC. And reflecting on his time with the Caps, Dowd shared his unexpected journey since joining the team all the way back in 2018. He was a free agent back then who accepted the only offer he received, a 1-year deal. And isn't that true about the Capitals? It is the place where players oftentimes, I don't want to say reclamation projects, but the Capitals take a flyer on a player that maybe a lot of other teams wouldn't. I'm talking Pierre-Luc Dubois. I'm talking Conley, Devontae Smith-Pelly, these kind of guys that the Capitals have a really great ability to find the talent in a player that is often overlooked with other teams. But time flies, and fast forward 7 years already, he's one of the longest tenured players and a respected leader in the locker room. And the locker room, the vibes, the chemistry, we hear all of that. He is one of those key pieces. He said, quote, "I never anticipated to be here this long," unquote. How great it is to hear how much he values being a part of this organization. And there's a lot to love. Like I say, the team is riding a high right now. And he said that it's not just this year, that this team for years has been a truly great team to play for. And we're glad to have him on board for years to come. And like I say, it's not just what he does on the ice. And that would be good if that was it. But it's also his impact off the ice. We typically focus on ice performance. It's also worth noting Dowd's impact off the ice. He recently received the Capitals Community Service Award for the philanthropy efforts, particularly his initiative, Dowd's Crowd, which gives children with sensory issues the chance to attend Capitals game. Talk about a great guy. And this team, like I said, is surrounded by truly great players within the organization on the ice. Yesterday's show, I talked about how I thought that Dylan Strome seems like a genuinely nice person on and off the camera. He's not looking for a photo op. You can put Nic Dowd in that same category as well, that some people, they're all smiles and happiness when the camera's on. Shut that off. they're not so much that way. But I think that Dowd is the real deal and a great person. Not that that matters. You could be just a miserable you-know-what and play some great hockey, and that's all that's important. But I think the fact that he is so well-liked, his philanthropy just speaks volumes not only about the hockey player, but the man. So now looking ahead, the Capitals do have some tough questions, even though if I'm the GM, they're not as tough as they used to be. Thompson, Chikrin, Dowd, Lindgren. It's looking good. The Capitals have only 5 pending free agents left on the roster, including Taylor Radish, Andrew Mangiapane, Anthony Beauvillier, Lars Eller, and defenseman Alex Alexiev. If you're asking me to pick a couple players out of that, if I had to pick 2, I'm going to pick 2. You guys are creating the rules, even though you're not. I am picking Anthony Beauvillier, as I think that he has been a good player on this team. You know, not a lot of hype surrounding him when he first joined the team, but I think he has fit in very well. He's been tasked to play some big time roles with the team. I think the initial thought was that he was going to play, you know, maybe off the bench, you know, a healthy scratch here or there. He has been huge. And also Andrew Mangiapane. You know, the caveat to both of those players is if they can get them with shorter term deals and with not a significant cap hit, I would sign off on Mangiapane and Beauvillier. As far as Eller is concerned, you know, this isn't 2018 anymore. Alex Alexiev, I think, is looking for his forever home. And Taylor Radish has been okay. Not really great, not really poor, okay. And I think the Capitals have some players either in the pipeline or could make some acquisitions in the summer. Those would be the players that I would prioritize. But what we're talking about in this segment is Nic Dowd. Glad they got it done. 2-year deal. Truly a great thing for the organization and the man. And this team is already looking good for next season. It is an exciting time to be a Capitals fan. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about the man himself, Ryan Leonard, and all the hoopla that surrounded Ryan Leonard. When were we going to see Ryan Leonard? Has he lived up to expectation, or has he let us down already? I'll break it all down straight ahead. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how betting with FanDuel makes it so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Now listen, our home team, the Wizards, they didn't have the season that they're hoping for, but the NBA playoffs are still right around the corner. Why not have vested interest in these games? Open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game. All of a sudden, they got that much more exciting. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So talking about the young prospect, Ryan Leonard, the guy that blew up at Boston College, scoring 30 goals, what he did on the international stage. When can we see him? Why didn't we see him last fall? Why didn't we see him out of training camp? Well, he's here right now. And what have we seen so far? He hasn't exactly been fired out of a cannon. He hasn't exactly scored 5 goals or anything of that nature. He has 1 goal so far, and it was an empty netter. Not really living up to what I think a lot of Capitals fans had hoped for. And I understand it's important to tamper expectations, as it is a leap from the NCAA to the NHL. It is jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire. And all things considered, I'll talk about the pros and cons of Leonard so far. But just before I dive into the nitty gritty, I think he has done pretty well so far. Generated chances, stood up for himself. You can see the makings of a great player. Is him joining the team right now before the Capitals enter into the playoffs a good thing? That I'm not so sure. Is there a better suited player that is maybe a bit more experienced, a better option? I kind of tend to think that way because, Ryan Leonard has been okay, and I'll give him okay. He has not been great, and this isn't about touchy feely. This is just about assessing it, like I would be assessing a property or the value of an automobile. That Ryan Leonard has been okay and is okay going to cut it when the rubber meets the road in the playoffs? Or is there another viable option at Hershey? Those are the things to think about. I know that the Capitals pushed all their chips in. We have that entry level contract, all those kind of things. So they're all in on Ryan Leonard. But was it the right idea to be all in considering what is at stake for this team? It could be the last hurrah, the last push for a Stanley Cup with Alex Ovechkin. Is it the right thing? Let's dive into that in this second segment of the show. So, you take a look at it, they're never easy decisions to make. And Leonard made his debut not so long ago. And so far, he's played 8 games and managed to score 1 goal. Though, let's be honest, that goal, like I said, was an empty netter. Now, the high hopes and playing time, fans had high hopes for an immediate impact from the 20-year-old rookie, as I did. But his playing time has decreased recently to just 11 and 10 minutes. And ultimately, what is that doing? Sparking some questions about the expectations placed on him. When he first joined the team, he was higher up in the lineup. Now, you've seen him play on the third line. That I think that head coach Spencer Carberry is seeing what kind of player they have right now. I'm not talking about trajectory. I'm not talking about where he's going to be a year or two from now. I'm talking about right here, right now. This team is ready to go into the playoffs, and a guy that's not fully cooked, shall we say, or at least NHL fully cooked. Now, even though he's only registered that 1 goal, Leonard is not shy about shooting. Just the other night, he logged 3 shots in a game where he played only 10 minutes. That's good. And, it's going to be a slow build. I understand he's only 20 years old, but consider what time of the season it is. Now, in another game, he had 4 shots. You can see that he's actively creating scoring opportunities, which is promising. But I think the frustrating part for Ryan is that goal scoring came to him easy at Boston College, as evident by how many goals he put up. 30 goals. You're a pretty good goal scorer. It hasn't come as easy in the NHL, having only 1 empty netter. That maybe that's frustrating him as well. But he has other skills in his skill set, his physical play and style. Like I've said, a Tom Wilson-esque type player, not a carbon copy, but has similar attributes. His playing style shows he's not afraid to get physical, which I like. That has been kind of the hallmarks of the Capitals for years, is a tough team if you think historically, and something we love to see in a player who thrives under pressure. But, for me, what stands out about Leonard is his resemblance, like I said, to Wilson. He's got that physical edge combined with offensive skills, which, is a combination that can really be dangerous for opposing teams. Now, listen, having a Tom Wilson on the team is a good thing. Having, a Ryan Leonard, who some people say when he is fully cooked, when he is fully acclimated to the NHL, could even be a better player than Tom Wilson. Like I've said before, if you're an everydayer, I think the best thing that Ryan Leonard could do would be hit the gym hard this summer, bulk up, kind of just take a page or whatever Tom Wilson did the first time he was in the league where he wasn't as big. And I think that he could be a real force to be reckoned with in years to come. But it's tough, adjusting to the pressures of the NHL while he might not have produced as much as we had hoped. What I would say is he's demonstrating positive habits. That some of the things that he learned at a college level. Now, the thing we have to consider is the unique circumstances surrounding Leonard's entry into the NHL, especially with all eyes on Ovechkin and his goal chase, that now the pressure is on the team as a whole. That Alex Ovechkin checked off the boxes that he wanted to catch one and to pass Gretzky. Now it's all on the players. And the player that's in the spotlight is the Capitals' top prospect, first round, 8th overall, Ryan Leonard. Is he going to live up to potential? But, it's about a competitive spirit, I guess I would say. One thing is clear is that he does have that, a competitive spirit. You saw him get into a fight here recently with a guy that was, above his weight class, or at least his fighting skill set. He did not cower away. That is one of the things I like a lot. And that's exactly what you need in those high-stake playoff moments. So I'm not saying he's not going to be a good fit in the playoffs. I just question if there is perhaps a better option. We're hoping to see more from Ryan Leonard. And, sometimes, playing in the NHL playoffs is difficult for a seasoned veteran. But for a guy that's 20 years old and just really kind of cutting his teeth in the NHL for the first time, it is even more difficult. So the pressure is on, maybe unfairly so, for a young player to do great things. I mean, look at Bedard, look at Celebrini, these kind of guys that there's a high expectation. But then you take a look at players that have taken to it, even though Fantilli's been around in the NHL longer than Leonard, of course, that we have seen him take off. So it's not just because you're a top end draft pick that you're going to always follow the same trajectory. We hope we see more, but I think at this point, as far as Spencer Carberry, as far as us fans and everyone else, we have to kind of temper expectations that we hope that he can do things. He's generating chances. He's standing up for himself. He's being physical, but hopefully he can kind of fast track that and get some goal scoring in, because for me, I think that once Leonard scores that first legit fair and square goal where it's not an empty netter, where it wasn't, backed into, that, he has a slap shot or just a legit shot and it goes into the net, I think the dam will break open. It's all about confidence. Like I've talked about on the show last year, it was Mantha and Ovechkin to start the season, that once you score, it's like, yes, I know how to do this again. And I think that will be the case for Leonard. We just hope that he can learn that sooner than later. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about the Capitals versus the Penguins. Two teams going in opposite directions. What can we expect in the season finale? I'll discuss straight ahead. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports, College Football 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With Wi-Fi 6XE and audio low latency mode, advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds you need to stay competitive. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite services such as Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. And let me tell you something, I love my Amazon Fire, and it's easy. I watch it to play games on. I watch television. It is the perfect gaming and entertainment hub. And if you don't have it, I think you really need to look into it, as it can take your gaming and television watching to the next level. So head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Games Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controllers required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube third generation. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. So in the regular season finale, the Capitals take on the Penguins, and the Capitals are getting ready for the playoffs, and the Penguins, oh well, yeah, they're setting up tea time, and who feels bad about it? Not this guy. The Capitals did the right thing. They were able to adjust on the fly. The feeling was that the Capitals are going to enter into a rebuild after Alex Ovechkin hangs up the skates. As it turns out, life changed, and sometimes you got to be ready for when life changes. You were sitting on a slider, but the pitcher was throwing heat. The Capitals were prepared and knocked it out of the park. How did it happen? Let's rewind time a little bit. Nick Backstrom had the hip resurfacing procedure, didn't respond quite the way he had planned on the LTIR. TJ Oshie, back problems, had to always put Humpty Dumpty back together again. LTIR. You take a look at Kuznetsov, got traded out to the Hurricanes, terminated his NHL contract, went out to the KHL. that opened up some money. So the Capitals were able to pick up some big name players. Pierre-Luc Dubois, Logan Thompson, Chychrun, Duhaime, Roy, Radich, these kind of guys, that the Capitals went from this old and slow team to a team to be reckoned with over the summer. So that could definitely be a lesson. Maybe the Penguins should have taken a page from that book instead of waiting too long to rebuild, because that's why they find themselves in this ugly position that they find themselves in. But the Caps have a standout record of 51 wins, 21 losses, and 9 overtime losses, and they have secured that top seed in the Eastern Conference for the upcoming Stanley Cup playoffs. Feeling good. The vibes, they are so positive around the team. But, well, on the other end of the spectrum, the Penguins, struggling this season with a record of 33, 36, and 12, will be sitting out the playoffs for the third consecutive season. And I'm expecting a head coach change, even though I think Sullivan does a good job there in Pittsburgh. I just think that he's got inept players, or players that are too old or just aren't ready for prime time, shall we say, that I think you can expect some big changes in the Steel City this summer. But storylines to follow: Ovechkin, Crosby. It has been the fun storyline as long as, well, both of those players have been in the league. This game will be the 73rd regular season meeting between Ovi and Crosby. And whose career's on a better trajectory, if you're asking me? Ovechkin, the greatest goal scorer of all time, while Crosby has put up impressive 93 points per Ovi in their previous encounters, with 32 goals, 61 assists to his name. Ovechkin now, on the other hand, the grade 8, 67 points from 37 goals and 30 assists. Now, you take a look at it, some metrics are better, some are worse. Obviously, I'm favoring the Alex Ovechkin being the greatest goal scorer of all time, but maybe that's, I'm looking at it with Capitals colored glasses on. But in any event, two premier players, the back nine of their careers, if you will, but still fun, still exciting. Even though they get along with each other off the ice, it's tough guys on the ice. But as far as we look at it, the Capitals are looking to build more momentum as they picked up a big win against the Islanders. But it wasn't too long ago that they struggled against the Blue Jackets, so that they want to continue with the positive momentum. They've had a bit of a rough stretch lately with a record of 4-6-1 in their last 11 games. Fortunately, like I said, they bounced back with a nice victory over the Islanders, and Dylan Strome, a hat trick, knocking it out of the park, his first hat trick as a Cap. And, Charlie Lindgren, a lot of questions. Is he going to be able to handle the duty of making it to the playoffs and playing in the playoffs? Did very well. 32 saves on the night. The Capitals are poised for greatness, despite the fact that Logan Thompson is a bit of a question mark, and Alexei Protas is a bit of a question mark. And I say question mark as far as when they'll be good to join the team. But, talking about the players that have stood out and put the Capitals in this very position, I'm talking Dylan Strome, 29 goals, 52 assists, and 81 points. And he credits his success to talented teammates. That very roster that former GM Brian McClellan and current GM Chris Patrick assembled as what has turned this team into a dynamic force to be reckoned with. Now, on top of that, like I talked about in the first segment, the cherry on top, Nic Dowd, that ever-present important player, the fourth-line center. You love him. Let's hear it. Nic Dowd, 2-year contract extension, knocking it out of the park. Career-high 27 points, and has been a crucial asset on the PK. 34 years old, going to be 35 here somewhat soon. 2 years, a perfect contract. I'm glad we were able to come to terms with it. But as far as the Penguins, it's not as rosy. Things have been looking up briefly with 2 straight wins, but they hit a wall with a 4-1 loss against the Bruins. And Coach Sullivan didn't hold back his disappointment. Again, I think that he would thrive in a different environment. I think he is ultimately a good coach. Don't ever think that Coach Sullivan is a poor coach. I just think that team has aged out, and I would expect big changes, like I said. But on that game, he said, quote, "It was a slow game, period. All he did, it was commend Tristan Jarry's strong effort with 28 saves." So, you take a look at it. Like I said, 2 teams going in different directions. Sidney Crosby, his point streak came to an end with 14 games where he racked up 9 goals and 11 assists. Now, unfortunately for the Pens, Fortunately for the Capitals, Chris Letang will not play in the season finale as he is recovering from surgery from a small hole in his heart. So it's good that he got that taken care of before that turned into something more serious. But at the end of the day, the Capitals are in a good position, and I think the Penguins are just going to have to come to terms with the fact that they're not the team that they once were. You can't live on former glory. Like I said, if you're an every day of the show talking about the Capitals, I spoke about for the longest time that the Capitals were trying to squeeze as much juice as they possibly could out of the Rock the Red era. Luckily for the Capitals, in a lot of ways, I hate to say it, but Backstrom and TJ Oshie and Kuznetsov, had it not been for that situation, I truly believe the Capitals would not be in the playoffs right now or poised to be in the playoffs right now. That opened up some money and, a depreciated Nick Backstrom and, a depreciated TJ Oshie and an inconsistent Kuznetsov, I don't think would have done what the players that they acquired in the offseason would have done. So, it seemed very unfortunate at the time. We know what Nick Backstrom and TJ Oshie meant to this team and Kuzi at points, but it's just seizing the moment and making the most of that. And I think that, it's not an apples for apples comparison, and the Penguins probably didn't have those same opportunities, but I'm glad that the Capitals have the leadership in place. McClellan, Chris Patrick, Leonsis putting the aces in their places, that the Capitals are, in fact, the position that they're in, and I think poised for truly great things this postseason. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On NHL, as they have you covered 5 days a week, available wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.